Election promises. As Anton Rain, you have made many promises to the people of Sorlin in order to gain their votes. They must be considered very carefully. Economy. Sorlin's economy has been based on a planned doctrine since formation until the former president, Ewald Alfonso, elected free reforms. Now the country finds itself in between two economic systems. Promote the free market. Diplomacy. The intensifying global rivalry between capitalist Arcadia in the west and communist United Canton in the east is opening new diplomatic possibilities. Sorlin could take steps to align itself closer to one. Immigration. In recent years, Bludish, Wezek, and Agnolian immigrants flocked to Sorlin due to relaxed immigration laws enacted by Ewald Alfonso. As a result, tensions in between swords and immigrants have been increasing. Keep immigration relaxed. We've also promised to focus on a certain extensive subject within our first term. People expect us to solve the negative situations with it in this topic while providing an overall improvement to the related policies. Law enforcement. Increased crime is pushing law enforcement to their limits, while judges at courts deal with huge and expanding backlog of criminal cases. 2 weeks have passed since we won the election, and now I was about to be sworn in as the fourth president of Sorlin. Thousands were watching the inauguration ceremony and cheering my name, Anton Rain. The die was cast. In the distance, the Maroon Palace stood on top of the famous Hill of Pride. I had no way of knowing what future awaited me there. I looked at my family. My son and daughter, Frank and Diana, were next to Monica, my wife. Her eyes were glimmering with pride. Then I turned towards the key people who made it all possible. Of course, each individual was promised an important position in my cabinet. As my thoughts slowly faded away, the reality of the situation dawned on me. Orso Hawker, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, for me. Its time for the oath has come. I'm ready. Please report after me. I do solemnly swear. I do solemnly swear that I will, and to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend. And to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the people in the land. You may now deliver your inauguration speech, Mr. President. Brothers and sisters, the crowd looked very eager to listen to me. We are ending economic hardship like never before, and today, our nation is falling apart. Our people, we suffer in this dire situation. Our workers are no less productive than a decade ago. Our capable minds are no less services, no less requested than they were last week, last month, or last year. I promise you, we will stop the recession and eliminate poverty. Our capacity as a nation has never been greater. Hundreds of thousands cheered. They were shouting my name in unison. I felt the responsibility, the power, and the burden all at the same time. I raised my fist in the air, which triggered a huge applause. I took a look at the people of Sorlin to burn this moment into my memory. One of the presidential guards came by to notify me that it was time to leave. I made my way to the leading car of the motor. The presidential state car was a jet black Cadillac with flags of Sorlin above the front headlights. Next to it, a man was holding the door. Sergei Wolfner. Hello, Mr. President. Still under the effect of the speech I'd made, hearing my new title made me smile. Will you allow me to introduce myself? I am Sergei, your new driver. Nice to meet you, Sergey. It's an honor. He respectfully bowed his head before opening the car door and gesturing inside. I entered the car. We'll be heading towards the palace. The motorcade began to move. On the way, Sergey proceeded to explain his duties as a driver. As minutes passed by, I found myself lost in thoughts again, barely paying attention to what he was saying. He suddenly made a gesture towards the now closer palace. Isn't the beauty the maroon palace? He was right. The sunlight glinted off the palace's many maroon-colored domes. It was so bright that I had to look away. Every time I look at it, I am reminded of my duty to this nation. So do I, Sergey. It's the beating heart of the nation, after all. Well said, Mr. President. The car drove past the majestic gates, continued uphill to the entrance, and stopped. Have a great day, Mr. President. Morgana Wiskor. He referred to the famous Swedish phrase from the times of revolution. Morgana Wiskor. Vektern sista, which meant morning will come, victory is close. Vektern sista. I made my way upstairs through the extravagant corridors of the palace, marble and engraved wooden finishes. Interior. My roommate made baked potatoes with steak. Best roommate ever. My footsteps echoed in the colossal halls. The guards bowed their heads in respect as I opened the massive doors to my new office. Ready to emphasize Sorlin's dire situation. President Anton rang of Sorlin today. Thousands of supporters have gathered in the streets of Dare, chanting campaign slogans, waving flags, and displaying USP party banners to display unwavering support for the newly elected president. The public, in its very humble roots, is now sitting in the Maroon Palace. The Lacabian times. The new assembly begins duty. The new assembly. The new term begins with the opposition of PFJ and NFP under the USP government, United Sorlin Party. Then our votes below the threshold resulted in USP taking 52% of the seats at Grand National Assembly, giving them the lawmaking power. The new seat numbers have been finalized as follows. United Sorlin Party 130, PFJ 70, this is the People's, it's 10. The Radical, another USP president. As the third USP candidate becomes president, it is high time to realize that the real change won't come from their party. Economists say, restructure the infrastructure, ? Government's role in Sorlin should be to integrate the world economy and reap the benefits of global trade. Economic growth and income inequality in this country won't be fixed otherwise. And to Solonomics. President Rain must take the advice of planned economy proponents around him with a pinch of salt and soul in the mid-40s. Okay. First point of order, the capital wholesale. We're going to start with Manager and Elias Graf. We're about to arrive at the White Room for our scheduled economy meeting. This was the room in the Maroon Palace where all important meetings were held. Two assistants arrived first, carrying a heavy projector. They stood with it by the door, waiting for the minister. In the hallway, I heard Elias Graf's voice. She was using the patient, almost motherly tone she often took in heated arguments. Elias Graf. Gus, do you really think that such an economically advanced area is more in need of investment than England? Elias, my interior minister, strode in. She was clad in shadows of brown and beige, the only spot of color of a bright yellow nearest star. Gus followed close behind. Gus Minger. Don't be an idiot, Lilius. We're about the unemployment crisis the greater Horsland and Gilsland regions are going through. These areas are our economic heartland. Gus curled his hands into fists. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development's temper hadn't changed since his days in the Alfonso administration, but neither had his reputation for getting things done. His far-reaching network of connections was unlike any other. Simon Hall quickly stepped between the two ministers without looking at either of them. He cleared his throat. Good morning, Mr. President. What is this debate about? Lilius Graf. Just a disagreement in internal economic strategy, President Ring. Gus Manager says. Not sure if I would call it just a disagreement, Lilius. Can you enlighten me, Gus? Ms. Graf seeks to focus our economic development in a region where we can't reap the financial benefits. Business leaders are requesting better logistical links in order to contribute to the economy more. A wise idea if your main agenda is to make more money instead of developing the region and serving the people. Lilius, could you elaborate? Of course, the argument is simple. Agland is our weakest region both in terms of economic and social support. We should support the city of Arvery and its respected mayor. How partial can you really be? Someone was observing the argument. Why are you questioning her impartiality? This snake of a woman is the former mayor of Arvery, and Eric Gniel is her successor. Her arguments could be biased. Simple economic data. Our poorest and least developed region is Agland. Facts are clear, but it seems to me that you'd rather resort to name-calling to push your agenda. The figures are being skewed in Nargis to make it look like a developed region, for example. It is the poorest region of all. Simon stepped in. I would like to put a stop to this debate. We'll discuss it all calmly. Simon pulled a silk handkerchief out of his pocket and briefly wiped his glasses. My staff and I are comprehensively interrupted by a groan from one of the assistants by the door. Both of whom were now visibly struggling to hold up the heavy projector. Oh, you can put that there. Point below the painting of President Sol, the assistants placed the projector next to the table and installed a white screen on the wall. Leave now, I mean. Thank you, and please leave now. The assistants left the cabinet room. I was reminded that Simon had never quite had a way with people. His faculty with numbers had made him the most sought-after economic specialist in Sordlin. Simon started looking at his slides. He always carried documentation around him with him. Lewis leaned to the table and spoke. Simon, what happened to the new police station construction in Estord? While going through his briefcase, he paused for a moment to answer. It got stalled due to a government property boundary issue. I have been meaning to look at it. Lewis, I can take a look at that one. Estord needs all the security help it can get. Sure, more time for me to spend on analysis. His eyes glittered when he finally found the slides he were looking for. British Ren losing further value today. We have been trying to stabilize it with the central bank. The recession of 1951 put enormous pressure on the economy, resulting in the collapse of the value of our currency. The entire situation was a significant cause of concern for our administration. Was our GDP and debt situation. Our current GDP is 310 billion Swedish ren and the national debt is 427 billion. It is still hard, Gus Manager says, it's still hard to fathom that we lost nearly 150 billion in wealth. The last 3 years were tough. What is our unemployment rate? Unemployment has skyrocketed and is now at a staggering 16%, and the inflation is at a relative high of 7%. Unemployment is increasing crime and drug use. We need to get people off the streets. The inflation is helping our average citizen, isn't helping our average citizen either. What is the status of the recession? The economy has been in an increase of about -6% in the past. GDP has dropped from Suzerain 15,454 per capita to Suzerain 10,359 from 1951. Administration success depends on our ability to stop the recession. The sooner we can reach GDP growth, the better. I have all the information needed. Let's move on to the economic strategy. Simon scattered the paper stack in front and took a final look at his notes before clearing his throat. As you can see, the situation is alarming, but not everything is negative. The extensive privatization program of Alfonso left us a large budget surplus which we can use to stabilize the crisis. The primary subject we need to settle is what general path we will take in our turn. This Solomonic-based nationalization happened in the 30s, and Alfonso's privatization began in the 40s. What will our administration focus on? One of our main promises was to promote a free market economy and to stop the recession. To be frank, I believe it is the only way out of the recession. I still do not support it. Why promote the private sector when we have competition has made them inefficient? Simon nodded.